Well friends, this thing came into the shop. It belongs to a friend of mine, and it is the door off a meat cutting bandsaw. But if you take a look here, this is broken, and this is another part of it that is also broken, but what you'll note is that they do not line up, and that's because there's a piece in the middle that's missing. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece of aluminum extrusion and remake that piece. I'm not sure how well this is going to work because this is cast and this is extrusion. I know they're two different alloys, but we'll try to weld them together. If they won't weld together, we'll use the strap technique, and what that is where you just cobble in straps that will bolt the three pieces together mechanically. Now the first thing we'll do is we'll cut off the broken edge. You see that's not entirely square, so that may prove problematic. Now here it broke right through the hole. I would have liked to preserve that hole, but it's just going to make too much hassle. Now this extrusion is substantially larger than the piece I'm having to mate it to, so we'll just mark that and cut it down. Okay, so now we'll cut that down and then we'll mate it to the other piece. Never let it be said that I don't get every mile out of a bandsaw blade. Now let's take a minute to talk about this bandsaw. This is the original Portaband made by Porter Cable. And here's what makes this one different and better than all the rest, especially DeWalt, which sucks. When you look down the blade from this angle on the DeWalt, about 3.5 inches in, you are looking at the support post. And that means on the DeWalt and several other of the poorly thought out Portabands in existence, your max depth of cut is 3.5 inches. Now on the Portaband, if the drop cut to the left of the blade is less than 3 inches wide, it could be 50 feet long and you could cut as deep as you want. Now since we don't have the piece that broke out, how do we know how long to make this one? And the way we made that determination was to measure from the top of this hinge mount hole to the top of that hinge mount hole, and that value on the frame was 16 7/8. So what we do here is we move this until that's 16 7/8. Okay, and then we mark that, and this is where we came in, so we'll trim that much off. And that should make this the right length. So once this is properly trimmed to length, we'll go ahead and sand all the mill scale off the pieces to prepare them for welding. The alignment's pretty good. I've got this back edge aligned with this rail on the welding table, and I know that it's straight because I put it there as a reference for just such uses. And I didn't mention it, but all three of those pieces are clamped down very well to that piece of 1x2 on the back end of the table. Now this thing is a bit of a pain in the ass to use because you got to hook it up. So one thing you need to do when you're going to use the spool gun is you got to pull the wire back onto the spool inside because the MIG hose has to come off. Now you can leave the wire sticking out a little bit and lock it into the wire drive and it'll be fine there. Then you plug the spool gun in, make sure it's fully seated, plug it onto the control, and there's a switch inside here that switches it from the wire feed to the spool gun. The only other thing you have to do is switch out the gas because the spool gun running aluminum requires argon, and the MIG uses a blend of argon and carbon dioxide. And you see here my argon bottle doesn't have one of these covers for it. So one thing you want to do, in fact it's probably a good idea to do this with any compressed gas, is open it a little to blow out any debris that might have settled in there, or spiders. Now I like to make sure all this is clean and clamped down because this spool gun will move the workpiece. And that doesn't look too bad. Now with a spool gun you want to leave a nice long stick out because if you get too close to the contact tip it will glue itself to it. Now another thing about the spool gun is it's pretty messy. It leaves spatter everywhere and it really doesn't produce the best looking weld in the world. It does stick two pieces of aluminum together pretty well though, and the weld is usually not porous, so it's fairly strong as well. Now this here's a grinding disc called the illuminator, and we'll just take down all that excess and see what we have, see if we need to fill in some more. Now it was about this far in that I got a funny taste in my mouth, and that's when I realized I should have put my respirator on. And word to the wise, you should do this anytime you're grinding or sanding. I should know better, I just got in a rush here. Okay, so there it is. And I'm reluctant to do any more grinding on it because, you know, the more grinding you do, the weaker the welds will be. But that should work just fine. I'm happy to answer any questions in the doobly-doo below, so please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Click up here to see my last video. Click over here to see something of mine that YouTube thinks you'll like. And have a good one.